My name is John S. Blair III. I was born August 21, 1944.
Okay. And what was your dad's involvement with the 1940 air terminal? And give his name also.
Okay, he was John S. Blair Jr. He became the first chief, or called a manager, of the air traffic control here at Houston Airport from 1947 until 1970 when it moved to George Bush Airport.
And what was his job here?
He was the chief or manager of the air traffic control.
And what did that job entail for him?
Basically, all safety of all air traffic coming into and traffic going out of the airport, using air traffic controllers to make certain that their planes were safely landed and safely took off.
What kind of hours did he work?
In the beginning, he works what's called shift hours. Someone had to man the air traffic control in the evening when planes came in late. When he became a manager, well, then he had regular, I would call it regular 9 to 5 hours, but it was more demanding than that.
If you remember, what was the first radar equipment like? And you can tell your story that you shared with me about when you got
Well, the first radar equipment that they had here at the airport was World War II radar, and it was delivered in 1948 supposed to be delivered to the tower here. However, no one was here to receive it, so my dad had it taken to our garage near our home here near the airport, and it sat in our garage for a few days before it was actually delivered to the airport.
What was the culture of the air traffic controllers like?
It was a cohesive group. Initially, the first air traffic controllers were a half a dozen men. They were all really World War II pilots. My dad had a pilot's license also. And it was a cohesive group. They'd go out to lunch, they'd have family picnics when they're not working. They talked cars. Cars were big things in the 1950s, especially what's new on the car coming out. It was a good cohesive group.
What do you think made them so cohesive? Do you think it was something to do with being World War II veterans? Do you think it was particular to that generation, or did you see that when you were also working?
I guess it's probably just a carryover of World War II. World War II, you had to depend on your buddy, and so therefore, when you're doing air traffic control, you couldn't make a mistake. You couldn't make a mistake with a plane trying to land or a plane trying to take off, and so this working with your buddies to make certain no mistakes were made, I think, created a cohesive group.
And what was security like in the control tower?
None. Absolutely no security back then from 1947 to probably early, late 50s. Anyone could walk up to the air traffic control tower, including myself. I used to ride my school bus, get off in front of the air traffic tower here, and then just bebop up and go out into the tower. No control whatsoever.
Did any other visitors ever come besides you?
Well, my dad used to take neighborhood kids up to the tower and show them what it was all about, show them the planes coming in and out. I'm certain they had other visitors. No dignitaries that I remember, but anyway.
And so you've mentioned to me the method that your dad developed for clearing pilots from takeoff. Can you tell us about that and how it worked? Well,
basically, it used to be that it was catch a can. A pilot said, I'm ready to take off, I'm ready to take off. And so if you had space, you tell them to take off. And then someone else would say, well, I want to take off first. And so you had this tug of war between the different airlines and the pilots. So ultimately, he said, I needed to develop some kind of rational takeoff strategy. He took some molding about this long that he could slip a strip of paper in, and they would record the flight and airline number, and then they put it on a rack. The rack was at an angle, and as these strips progressed down, the one at the bottom got to take off first. They pull it off, and then the next one got to take off, and that's established a priority where you didn't have this competition between different airlines and different air pilots that wanted to have priority. So, and it's still in the use in some Air Force places I understand. I just recently went to Conroe Regional Airport. The lady there, manager, said that Air Force is still using it today.
Did he patent it or anything?
No. He took some photos of it, sent to the back then Civil Aeronautics Administration. They approved it. It was put in here, and then ultimately around the country, and it's still being used elsewhere.
Can you describe the air traffic control tower during the terminal building's renovation in 1949? Do you remember any of that? It might have been before you were old enough to.
No, it was. I've only seen photos of the original 1940s. A very small tower. It would resemble the tower on the lighthouse, literally an aviation lighthouse. I really didn't get to see the new construction until after they put the new one up. However, when they were getting ready to build the 1949 renovation, they needed, of course, still do air traffic control. So they went out in midfield and they built a 30-foot high incline berm out of what am I thinking of? Dirt. Okay. Dirt. And they took a World War II ambulance like you would see in the movie MASH, only it was World War II. And they built a tower on top of the ambulance, and they drove the ambulance up on the ramp, and that's where they conducted all the air traffic control from 1949 until they completed the renovation, I think about a year or two later.
So what effect did Hurricane Carla have in 1961?
Oh my gosh. Well, 1961, for those that are still alive today, Hurricane Carla was one of the worst hurricanes we had here in the Gulf Coast. I think they had a 145 mile per hour wind. My dad, school was put out. I was 16, school was out because of the weather. My dad said, "Son, I need your assistance." I said, "Why?" He said, "We need to go to the tower. We need to duct tape all the windows with duct tape so they don't blow out." He said, "I've got 2 volunteers." He asked for volunteers, but given the harshness of the wind blowing and the rain, no one volunteered. So myself, my dad, and 2 other men climbed up the steps to the tower, and we took duct tape and we duct taped all the windows. My dad had unlocked the door that went to the tower. Earlier said, "What's security like?" Well, by the time this happened in 1961, they did have a locked door. He unlocked the door from the outside, propped it open, went downstairs to get something in his office on the 2nd floor, and he laid his keys down on the desk. And then he came back upstairs. Maybe he forgot them, or maybe he left them there on purpose. But anyway, we're duct taping the windows, and all of a sudden, the big wind came up the staircase and blew the door shut, and we were locked in. There was no radio communication, no telephones, nothing, and so we had to get out of there. If the windows blew, we'd be killed. So this one gentleman's name's Elmo. He had no family. He said, "I will climb down, and if you look at the outside of the facility here now, you'll still see the staircase. There's an inclined staircase and then a severe drop, and the wind's blowing 75, 80 miles an hour, and it's raining." And he climbed down. We, of course, were able to get out, and the duct tape held, and so the tower was saved.
You've mentioned this to me, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, but what did the air terminal look like in the early 1950s? And you kind of mentioned that you thought you remember that there were colored restrooms, but do you remember much experience with that, or if you want to talk about that?
Well, my dad was in charge of air traffic control, or the upper part of the airport, and a fellow by the name of Paul Kuntz was in charge of all the ground operations and the airport facility. The main airport facility, as I remember, in 1940s, 50s, at least up to the mid-50s, number one, there were very few, if any, female passengers getting off of planes. It was what we call the Ozzie and Harriet era, where the ladies stayed home, kept the house, and the men flew to wherever they're going to fly. So you didn't see many women getting off the planes. Given the era, there were segregated restrooms along the hallways here, Shoe Shine Boy. They even had a barber shop. They may have sold coffee and donuts. I don't quite recall. I do recall that I think Eastern Airlines had a little counter where they sold tickets off to when you departed for the plane. All tickets were paper tickets. There's no computers. The actual lobby was all horsehair stuffed cushions. And I would go up on the mezzanine, and the air traffic controllers would make me paper airplanes up from the tower. I'd stand on the mezzanine and throw the paper airplanes down to the patrons on the floor. So,
are there any other stories you want to add? I think we've covered a lot of what we've talked about. Can you think of anything else that you'd like to share?
No, I just hope people come to the museum and appreciate the history, how it all evolved, the dedication that people gave to make it what it is.